How about that?
Hi. Good morning, good evening. Welcome to the Nahant Public School Committee meeting for February 25th, 2020. And we will begin at 7:05 with a flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The next order of business is the reading and approval of the minutes from the February 11th, 2020 meeting. These were sent out prior to the meeting. Does anyone have any questions or comments? No?
I'll make a motion to approve the regular school committee meeting minutes of February 11th, 2020.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye. Thank you. Next on the agenda is correspondence and community input. I do not have any. Do we have any?
Madam Chair, I do. I put the MASC policy newsletter that Mrs. Valentine distributed last meeting on this agenda item because I figured it was correspondence from your association,
Right, okay.
rather than giving it its own identity as an agenda item. So what I have in your packet is the actual document that I believe perhaps all of you got. I'm not quite sure. But what I did is I did my research and I wrote it right on the document. So the MASC policy newsletter of January 2020 recommends that policy JBB, educational equity, be added to your manual. The first reading of that policy is this evening. That is on your agenda. Then the next statement that the policy attorney made was that there are 4 policies that should be removed. 3 of them, noted by the asterisks, are currently in the policy manual. 1 is not. So down the line, I'll review those and compare them to policies we have and then make a recommendation. My guess is, since this is coming from the MASC attorney, my recommendation will be to remove those 3. Then there's an enormous list of policies in alphabetical order by section that starts on the first page of the newsletter, goes to the second page, of policies that should be reviewed. I will make a reasonably good attempt at seeing what's different about them. One I can tell you is that on the second page, JFABF, Educational Opportunities for Children in Foster Care, which has been updated in our policy manual, that's already been rescinded by you on January 14th. That's the one you took out of the policy manual. So, you know, it's going to take me a while to kind of get it all together. Then the next category in the newsletter is policies revised based on recent court case. That policy, BEDH, is on the agenda this evening for first reading. Then there are 3 policies that the newsletter recommends that the school committees in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts amend. We've already done that. Those 3 policies were all approved on January 14th. I'm not even going to read them. Everybody remembers. They were the homeless, the military children, and the foster care. Okay, and that kind of brings us up to date on that. And as I said, I will look over the 3 policies that are recommended to be removed and all of those policies that seem to need updated language and I'll try to get some updated language from MASC.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. No questions or comments. The next agenda item is examination and authorization of payment of bills, and that's ongoing. So we can move on to the superintendent's report. Mr. Parentazzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The first thing I'd like to do is give the members of the school committee and the community an update on the power outage of December. I believe it's December 9th. Pool and Electric, our local electric contractor, finished repairing all the damage caused by the surging two-phase electric. They actually finished that on Friday. On the 14th of February, I received a communication from the Travelers Insurance Casualty Company, which is the MIIA Property and Casualty Administrators. In other words, Travelers takes care of the business for Maya. They have approved $15,011.11 of bills that I submitted for $17,010.96. The differences are $1,000 deductible, which may be returned to us if National Grid is held responsible by the insurance company and they reach an agreement. And they made $999.85 of adjustments because that's what insurance companies do. Thank you. I haven't emailed them yet to ask for what that adjustment means. So in the bill rolls today, you had a bill from Poolin, which is $16,131.59. And we also have an outstanding bill of $879.37 from Kraft, which is the company that takes care of our generator. So right now, it looks like we're going to be out right in the neighborhood of $2,000, maximum $1,000 total, if National Grid is held responsible for our deductible. And Poolin will be sending more bills. Since they just finished Friday, there's another sequence of bills coming. And they are the only two entities that we have a cost from that outage. It was the repair of the electric, and it was the monitoring and repair of the generator. All of our staff, there was no overtime, there was no labor costs because it happened during a workday. Okay. B is the broken pipe update. On the 16th of February, a valve in our speech and language pathologist room blew. I can tell you that as bad as this is, because we had water, 500, 600, 700 gallons of water in the building, it was a Sunday at approximately 10:35, and I want to commend our principal, Mr. Andrews, for A, being at work on Sunday morning, and B, more importantly, seeing the leak, because it's downstairs on the first floor, so he was walking around the building doing something. We were able to immediately call the DPW. We called Embry Elevator because the elevator pit, which goes below our first floor where the mechanics are, was filled with water. And we called Amante HVAC engineers. Everyone responded quickly. One of our custodians came in to help. The good news is that we had purchased a sump pump about a year ago. I'm not even sure what generated that, other than, if you remember, we did have a water issue about 20 months ago. We were able to put the sump pump in. We were advised by the elevator technician not to release the water into the sewage because it had some oil in it. It may have had some residue of antifreeze, and of course it was dirty because it was in this pit for from 2007 to now. So there was dirt and other things. So the fluid is now sitting in 14 plastic barrels in the boiler room, waiting for me to get an overroad permit from the DEP, the federal authorities who issue these permits. I've applied for the permit twice. The first time I was told I did it wrong because I put on the permit that I was a provider of services rather than what they call the originator of the fluid. So I did it again on Friday. It was a very complex application. And today I emailed our local agent to find out if I did it right, so I'll find that out on Thursday. So until we get that overland permit, Clean Harbors has already told me that they will remove it for $1,668.80. So I already have the estimate for getting rid of it. But they can't actually take it until we get this permit. So what's going to happen with this is the insurance adjuster who I spoke to today will be here tomorrow there's not a lot to see. He can look at the barrels of fluid because you need an elevator company to raise the car up so you can look under it, because it won't do that unless you have an expert technician on site, for the obvious reason that it is dangerous. So right now I'm not going to call an Embry because that would be more money for either the insurance company or us, and unless the adjuster says, yeah, I want to see the pit. Frankly, the pit's in great shape because it's clean now, so there's not a lot down there to see. Good news, Mr. Andrews was there on Sunday the 16th, so the damage was limited. Embry Elevator and Amante responded quickly. We pumped the water out. The elevator is functioning perfectly. There is a recommendation from Embry Elevator to replace the 110 amp service that was underwater. Even though it's working, he said it will corrode quickly and it will become a problem down the road. So I told the insurance adjuster that, and he agreed. So here's what the total cost is going to look like. We're going to have a charge from DPW for overtime of $289.44. Our own custodian for 5 hours of overtime, which will be about the same amount. Clean Harbor, $1,668.80. The Embry Elevator bill, which will be high because it was a Sunday. The Amante technician bill, which will be high because it was a Sunday. One rug that was in the room that once this fluid hit the rug, I see no reason to try to clean it. You know, it's $200-300 at the most. It does have to be a fireproof rug because it's in a school, so you know you can't buy an $89 area rug, but it's not going to be that much. And then the estimate, I've asked Ed Poulin for an estimate on the new 110 amp service. Once again, recognizing and telling him, I can't even show you what you're replacing, so give me a range. So if the adjuster says, yeah, you're going to have to move the car up so I can look, then I'll have Mr. Poulin come in at the same time so he can see what he has to replace. And that's the broken pipe saga. So why did the valve, as it was described to me, the back of the valve blew out? Happened on Sunday. If you remember, Friday night was very cold, windy. Maybe it froze, maybe it didn't, maybe it was just fatigue or age. I'm not taking any chances. During April vacation, I'm gonna have a company come in and they're gonna run a fluid through our heating system for 24 hours with the boilers off. They will get a calculation of how much volume of liquid is in our heating system. So all the valves will be open, but the boiler will be off, not producing any heat. Then they'll tell me what the actual cost of putting antifreeze in the system permanently will be, so we don't have to deal with this again. This is the second one in 4 years. My guess is that if there was antifreeze in the system, it's old and worn out or depleted because of the leaks, or it never had it. But we'll find all that out. The cost for the test is somewhere between $750 and $1,000. And the gross estimate for the antifreeze is in the neighborhood of $8,000 to $12,000. High cost, but if it gives us 10 years with no leaks and no floods, and it's a good investment, in my opinion.
How old is that part of the building?
That part of the building should have been rebuilt and added on in 2007. So theoretically, if they put antifreeze in 2007 and some, before I got here, if they replaced a piece of pipe and 100 gallons came out, and then we had the leak up in the special education room 2 years ago, I'm pretty confident that we need it, and if it had it, which we believe it did, because James Federico told me that when the first leak happened 10 years ago, the liquid was reddish in color. That leads me to believe that it did have some kind of antifreeze in it. I questioned, you don't mean rust orange? And he said, oh no, this was, oily and, like the antifreeze in your car. It has that feel to it.
To get it for the company to come in and put the antifreeze, is there any kind of warranty that they offer? Like it will last 5 years before something blows, or? Because you
Yes,
said we're hoping to get 10 years out of it. Do they have any kind of warranty?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Madam Chair, through you. The response is, if there's no incidents, the antifreeze is guaranteed for a significant period of time. However, if a valve blows, not from freezing, or something else happens, a copper pipe breaks,
That's not their
and we
responsibility.
lose it. But what I plan to do, and what I would recommend to the next superintendent, unlike in the past, if you have an incident like that, you have the company come in and retest, just to make sure that you keep your antifreeze at a level. The level that they initially reach is 30 below zero. So I think you can get away with a couple of small issues before you have to replace it, because obviously it's never going to be 10 below zero here. If anything, we're warming up. So,
Is there any other reason why a valve would break other than freezing, or?
yes.
Just wondering, that's why I asked.
The technician said, it's a rotating valve, and it has a disc fitting in, and he said, it blew out. Chances are it froze, but it's also very possible that it just fatigued and blew. But I can tell you, the water was like a garden hose just coming out, and if Kevin wasn't here, I don't know what we would have had.
Do we turn down the heat on vacations?
No.
I don't remember it being that cold.
I actually communicated on Thursday evening with Kevin, with the two custodians, not to turn the heat down because it was going to be cold Thursday evening and Friday evening. So they did not turn the heat down. I got a memo from Maya, our insurance company, suggesting that we don't. The other provision that I have made subsequently is that I have asked the custodians in the evening to open every door. The hallway doors are open, the connecting doors are open, obviously the exterior doors are closed. And so if you have a cold room, it'll, you know, the way heat equalizes, we may avoid an issue that way. And I just checked right before I came over this evening to make sure that we were still doing it. And we've been doing that since the incident. Okay, and Madam Chair, I'd like to add a C to 5, just an announcement. I heard back from the union, the calendar is a go. I emailed you earlier today electronically. I wanted you to have a hard copy. We also posted it on the website today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? On superintendent's report, done?
Yes, but if, with your permission, I'd like to play principal.
Yes, please, move on to principal's report.
Since we had a meeting 14 days ago, and in the interim, we had 9 days of no school, I thought it would be nice if our principal, who spent most of Sunday, February 16th at school, to have an evening off. And he gave a report, which you have in your packet. So the forest playground, so he always divides it into 3 categories, which I will do: logistics and facility. The forest playground, the cable and netting arrived, and for the top of the climbing structure, and the principal will determine when that gets put on. But our forest playground, as soon as the weather turns, we should be fully functioning. We have a little bit of soft material to put at the bottom of the big slide, and that's about it. We've been working on it slowly. The online student registration for pre-K and new students is now up, and the second page in the principal's report is a screenshot for you. And you see the student registration forms and the links, and obviously this will be communicated to all pre-K and new students. It is now live, and we can begin accepting registrations through it immediately. So one more way to make being a parent guardian in the Nahant Public Schools a little bit more convenient. Okay. So under teaching and learning, we have a Safe Routes to School poster contest. The email went out today, and submissions are due to the school by March 23rd, and anyone can put in a poster. I don't know if you've noticed the student-drawn anti-idling posters. You know, there's the formal ones, and then the ones that everybody looks at. That came from the poster contest.
Last year.
Last year, that's right. Upcoming events. March 2nd is Read Across America Day. We're proud to announce that Mrs. Lauren Baker, the governor's spouse, will be at the Johnson Elementary School to read a Dr. Seuss book. Read Across America Day used to be called something else, and it was just isolated to Dr. Seuss. It's not isolated to Dr. Seuss anymore, but it is his birthday. So we're sort of still celebrating it. And March 19th, on a Thursday, it is early release day. We have Dr. Kathy Quill, a behavior specialist, going to meet with our staff again on creating consistency regarding positive behavioral supports and modifications. And we're going to continue. The slang, the jargon for this is called PBIS, Positive Behavior Intervention System. But it really doesn't matter. There's many systems, but the bottom line is engaging activities in the classroom, quickly addressing diversion off of task at the lowest possible and most positive possible level, long-term creates better learning and more fun and fewer disciplinary issues. That, in a nutshell, that's it. You don't wait till somebody does something the third or fourth time and then, you get passive aggressive about it. That's it, I've had it. Right away, Tony, you really should be writing your essay now, not looking out the window. Do you need help? Something very supportive and helpful, and that's what Dr. Quill really focuses on. So we're very excited to have her back again. And Madam Chair, that is the end of my principal's report. I hope I did him proud.
Thank you. All right, moving on to old business and other pending matters. So we have the fiscal year 2021, the approved budget that was approved by
Yes.
us.
Thanks to the chair, I redid the PowerPoint presentation. It was corrected in two ways. I tried to clarify that the technology specialist was not a special education function on the fourth page. So special education staffing, speech is part of that, and the technology specialist and the special education services are separate, okay? And then on the grid, on the next to last page, I added the dollar sign to the last column at the request of the chair. So I wanted you to have an updated copy. And on the actual budget worksheet, I put the date of your approval.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
That looks good. Okay, moving on to new business, educational stability review.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The Educational Stability Review was a review of our support for students who could have lack of stability in their lives, who need education to be stable. If you remember, that was the reason we have those 3 new policies that I mentioned earlier in the meeting. So I wanted you to see the screenshot. This is from the director of that program, who sent me on the 16th of January. Based on a review of all submitted documentation, the Educational Stability Monitor Review is complete. So I wanted you to know that we are all up to date.
Great.
And nothing else is required of us. The 8B is a similar document. This is the actual screenshot of the DESE website, and if you look where it says progress due date, right next to it, it says February 7th, 2020 approved. That means the same thing. All of our documents that needed to be updated have been updated. And we have no additional responsibilities other than the annual ones that we have. For example, school bus driver training on anti-bullying and how to deal with students who have special needs. But that's an annual thing. Okay?
Thank you.
Item 8C, Madam Chair, is a side letter of agreement signed by the President of the Nahant Teachers Association on the 13th of February. This side letter of agreement provides a $5,000 incentive that is non-pensionable and subject to appropriate and applicable taxes for teachers who are at the top of the teacher scale, who retire or resign early, and a $500 non-pensionable incentive for our ESPs, our paraprofessionals, who either retire or resign early. This is an attempt by the union to get a benefit for their members, and it's also in the best interest of us financially, because the average salary of someone on step 10 with a master's degree, because in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts now, teachers after 5 years must hold a master's degree, and it's about $85,000 per year, plus benefits. When I hire a new teacher, I typically book it as, because I don't know who I'm going to hire, I typically book it as a Master's 2 or Bachelor's 3, which is in the neighborhood of $55,000. So for position X, the district and the town could save $30,000. Now, there is an offset in terms of experience that's lost, history, quality. But we have a primary and an elementary school. There are many outstanding candidates, as we have found with our recent hires. So that's mitigated a bit. You know, Mr. Flynn can tell you, if you're looking for a physics teacher in a high school, that's not the case. You know, you can't figure to hire somebody for that kind of money to replace, you know, your advanced math teacher. But there are certain subjects in the secondary schools and in primary school and in elementary school where the field is at this time very strong. So I'm confident that if someone took this, we would be able to replace them with a highly qualified staff member, and that we would have a financial savings, which is good for the budget, particularly next year with how tight it is. So, Madam Chair, I recommend that the school committee give every consideration to this offer by the NTA and to approve it. I put many qualifiers into this program, and the NTA and the MTA field rep accepted every one of them. So we have protection.
Any questions?
So do we need to make a motion to accept this, right?
Yes.
Accept it or approve it?
You have to, Madam Chair, through you, I recommend that you would approve the side letter of agreement and read the first sentence and the bold, and then as the second part of that motion, to authorize the chair to sign it.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve the side letter of agreement between the NTA and the Nahant School Committee. Agree to offer the following resignation/retirement incentive, and also make a motion to have the chair sign on behalf of the Nahant School Committee.
I'll second the motion.
We'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Tria?
Aye.
Ms. Shaw?
Aye.
Ms. Valentine?
Aye.
Mr. Flynn?
Aye.
And the chair votes aye as well. Thank you.
And Madam Chair, after the meeting, I have those documents for you to sign.
Okay,
Thank you.
great, thank you. So, moving on to new policy, JBB.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 8D is new policy JBB, as we previously discussed. It's a new policy that the MASC attorney is recommending that all school committees have in their policy manual. and I recommend that the school committee give it every consideration because, you know, your association is recommending it, and that this would be the first reading of that new policy, and therefore, you know, if the chair wanted to ask questions or to open it up for discussion or to wait till the second reading to do that, it's completely up to you. This is exactly the one that I got out of the document that Mrs. Ballantyne forwarded.
So we make a motion regarding the first reading of this policy. Or do we don't have to do that till the
You
third
don't
time?
have to.
We could approve it, right?
Well, we need to read it more than once.
Yeah.
So we're.
But I
this time
forgot
it's
if we
just
had to
the
take a
first
motion,
reading.
make a motion for the first reading.
I don't
Skip
think
the
we
first
need a
one, the
motion.
second, and the final.
No, you don't.
No, so we read it.
There's several things according to Robert's rules. You can do nothing. The chair can table it for the second reading, or you can have accept the first reading, anything you want. But the important thing is that we have documentation both on the agenda and in the audio visual of the meeting that you had a first reading. And you have notes.
We have a first reading, we'll review it now, and then we'll review it again.
Okay.
Next
That's
meeting.
right. And with a policy like this, Madam Chair, it's pro forma. You know, you have some policies that impact students, impact parents, et cetera. This is a statement of equity for all students that, you know.
Yeah, it's sort of like an umbrella, kind of broad.
Yeah.
All the other policies fall under it. The only thing I note on here is that we'll use, for number 1, data disaggregated, which I don't know that we've seen data like that before, disaggregated by these different groups. And our district is not that diverse that we might not want to actually do that, only because it could truly identify people.
And it does give us the one appropriate, to use our judgment,
Right,
luckily, so we can use discretion.
yes.
Yep.
Yes, which,
Madam Chair, one thing the committee could do next meeting is take the when appropriate, which is really addresses that concern, and add and available.
Right.
Because, as you know, we don't get a lot of disaggregated data because the state has determined that any disaggregated data with an N of less than 20, they don't give you. Right. And again,
right.
that's
Yeah.
not appropriate.
That seems like a nice
It's a
edit.
good point. Okay.
Okay. Any other comments? Okay, moving on then to policy revision, BEDH. Mr. Prantasi?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Now, this policy is a little bit different. This is the one that in that newsletter, the MASC attorney suggests that school committees should have this because it's based on a very recent court case. And I concur, because whenever you have a court case that clarifies a challenge or a concern or a complaint, then when you look at your policy, you actually recognize that there's a reason for the detail that the attorneys want in policies. The third page of this section of your packet is the current policy. So this would be one that we would amend into the new language. So one example I would like to highlight to show you why the amendment is necessary is number 3. Your current policy says, quote, "Topics for discussion must be limited to those items listed on the school committee meeting agenda for that evening." Clearly, the attorneys in the court have determined that that's not the case.
Right, that makes sense.
The new policy says a whole bunch of things that I'm not going to read, but basically it says that the topics for discussion are basically anything under your purview. That's really what all those 6 lines mean.
Perfect sense.
It still prohibits, like your original one did, talking about personnel issues.
Right.
So it retained the safeguards, and yet it broadened it in light of the court case. Once again, I give you, in my opinion, that, consideration is warranted.
The one thing I note in number 1, it says public comments segment shall not exceed 15 minutes. And then number 2, we talk about each person being allowed 3 minutes. I would think that if there was some contested, or if we had an audience greater than 5 people wanting to speak, not everyone could possibly get the chance. So I'm not sure how I feel about that 15-minute max there. I wonder if we could maybe soften it to be something such as public comments segment shall not exceed 15 minutes shall typically not exceed 15 minutes, something
At the
along that
discretion.
I think number 2 covers that, though, because the last sentence in number 2 states that the presiding chair may permit extension of this time limit in extenuating circumstances.
But that's referring to the 3 minutes.
The individual one. So one person could take up to 15 minutes, but the total time could still be capped. What if we just added the discretion of the chairperson?
For the number 1.
To the
yeah,
number
for
1.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Something, just kind of changing, just using like this last sentence in number 2, somewhere up there. So,
Yeah, exactly. Copy and
may
paste.
permit, yeah. Does that make sense? Or am I
Yes,
clear?
Madam Chair, if I could suggest why that's there.
Please?
If you look at the 3rd paragraph of the proposed policy, it says that public comment is not a discussion, debate, or dialogue between individuals and the school committee. It is an individual's opportunity to express an opinion on issues within the school committee's authority. I believe that if the chair wanted to have a debate or a discussion on a particular topic brought up, the chair could suspend rules, and you may, with the vote of your colleagues, you may have a 5-hour discussion if you want. All you have to do is suspend the rules.
Okay.
What this is saying is, if somebody challenges your right to end something, you can say, we have a policy that limits it. I believe that's why, it goes one way but not the other.
Right. No, and I understand the 3 minutes. I was just thinking if there were 6 people, each wanting to speak 3 minutes.
Yeah. The other thing it gives the chair the authority to do is to limit the number of speakers to 5 and 15. You don't have to,
Right.
but you could. So it gives the chair the ability to actually control meetings, because I do know from discussion with some of my colleagues that some school committee meetings are pushing 5 hours at times. And, if you think about it, people are so exhausted, they probably don't even know what they're doing. That's a long, long meeting. We don't typically have that issue.
A couple.
We've had a couple.
We've had a couple.
Any other comments? All right, so far. I totally understand why it's there. I still think shall typically not exceed 15 minutes, but may, at the discretion of the chair, opens it up, or, is just clear there, then it's not like you're changing rules in the midst of a meeting. I
Or
don't
even
know.
if you take out the word typically, so it's still a hard stop at 15 minutes, that is the norm, that is the rule, unless the discretion of the chair.
That makes sense.
Where does it say typically?
No,
Patty
no.
was suggesting adding.
I wouldn't say typically.
Okay,
I was just
take
saying
out
take it-
typically.
Yeah.
Don't put typically in, let's say
Exactly.
that, but
Yeah.
I like what Lauren,
You could use the phraseology in the second paragraph in the first.
Right.
exactly,
Right.
yes. I think,
Very clear.
yeah, to me, it does. Okay. And then it looks like in number 5, we just need to write in our town.
Right.
Sounds good.
Okay, and so we will reread this again at the next meeting.
Yeah. The other thing that's a little bit different about this is the pre-registration for comments.
Yep.
So that before you start your meeting, you know what's going on, as compared to, again, I have been present where 30 minutes into a meeting, 50 people show up. Maybe they were picketing, or maybe they were doing something else, maybe organizing, and then, the meeting distorts. But again, Robert's rules are the chair can suspend rules and recognize. The other thing that policy really wants to do in its intention is to take off the table any claim of discrimination. That's very important.
Not allowing people to speak.
That you have concrete rules, so somebody can say, well, you let somebody do this, and because I'm a blank, you're not letting me do it.
Right.
'Cause you don't want to get into that.
And the way it's written in this amended version is, in my opinion, much superior to the original,
Yeah.
where it's kind of a subjective judgment, improper conduct and remarks will not be allowed. The new version is much more clear that anything not protected by the Constitution for free freedom of speech. I think it's much more legally.
So are we opening
Tighter.
ourselves up to more
Promotes
risk if we
consistency.
add the same statement from number 2 to number 1?
No.
The preceding chair may permit extension of this
Because it's still a judgment.
Well,
and extenuating circumstances.
I mean, we're allowing a judgment in exceeding 3 minutes. We're applying the same rule to exceeding 15. It seems like it's applying it to the same kind of a principle, exactly. Otherwise, we're applying it to an individual but not to a group, which to me seems less fair, as opposed to applying it both to individuals and to a larger pool. And still, the assumption is here, the way it's written in my interpretation, is that the rule is, it stopped at 3 minutes for an individual, it stopped at 15 minutes as an aggregate, but under certain circumstances, if the chair feels like it's necessary, it could be extended. So it feels like it's, to me, more fair if it's done for both, but.
If it's included for both, I agree, because I could let you speak I could decide as the chair to let you speak for 10 minutes and Mike,
For 5, because
30
15 is all that's
seconds.
allowed.
I guess I'm not, I guess, in favor of either, is what my point is.
You'd like
If
to
the
just
intent of
take
the-
this out.
If the intent of the changes is to limit us from exposure around making decisions, like, it seems like it's trying to really put some firm rules, which is like, per meeting, you can have up to 5 people comment, and the comments are up to 15 minutes. So by introducing it in number 2, it made us introduce it into number 1. But if the intent of the change, based on precedence of law, is that we want to limit our exposure on making judgment and basically let it reside on the policy, then I guess I'm leaning towards not having it in 2 either.
I hear what you're saying. I wonder what the precedent is for having it in 2 and not having it in 1.
I agree.
If that's an oversight by the original writers of this, or is there something further?
Madam Chair, I am aware of the court case that this is based on, and it was a discrimination case against the school district and a superintendent who ended a acrimonious statement. The intent of the chair being able to extend the 3-minute limit, but not the 15-minute limit, is if you only had 2 people, you freeze the 15, but you could give each, on a theoretical basis, each of them 7.5 minutes.
So therefore, just limiting the overall time that they can consume.
That's correct.
So like no filibuster type things.
That's right.
Okay.
I understand.
We have had acrimonious meetings in the past where I remember someone in the crowd just didn't like our answers and kept asking the question, and then changing the question verbiage, but it was still the same question, and it went on, and we eventually had to go back and said, you know, you've had your time, we've timed it. So it has happened in the past.
I guess that does make sense based
Yeah.
on what you described.
Because there has to be a way to stop someone from just totally disregarding the rules
Yeah.
of the meeting.
Oh, I agree, like, I think having this 3-minute time period is
Yep.
perfectly appropriate. If you can't get your point across in 3 minutes, unless there's some reason, you know.
Madam Chair, the way I've seen it done dozens of times is the chair would denote a timer. When 2.5 minutes is up, the person gets a 30-second warning. At 3 minutes, the chair says, your 3 minutes are up. Can you end your statement in, and you pick a number, 30 seconds, submit it. Rather than saying, there's only 2 of you, so you're each going to get 7 minutes. You know, you go step by step. Because then what you're doing is you're respecting the 3-minute mark, but extending it because someone had a couple of more things to say. You know, this is not, you know, rocket science, you know, where everything has to be exact. But you do want to retain your control in a fair, equitable way so that you're not exposed in any way, nor that you have to sit here and listen to someone for a very long period of time saying the same thing. The other thing that happens is when someone has to pre-sign, they tend to think about what they're going to say and maybe even write it down, as compared to, you know, I heard what you said, Mr. X. I didn't like it, so let me tell you what I think. You know, you want it to be a planned statement because, again, it's not a debate, it's not a discussion. Most school committees I've worked with, when people have things to say, they just listen. And someone would say, thank you very much, would take that under advisement.
I think the signing up at the beginning of the meeting, we have a piece of paper out here, if
Yep.
someone present, and, you know, that makes perfect sense, and that's clear, and,
I'll make a form, Madam Chair,
okay,
for signups. Okay?
okay. Don't print too many.
Save the trees.
So it would be a template that would be attached to the policy for future use, should the policy need to be reflected on and
Yep.
implemented.
The reason, Madam Chair, I suggest writing a form is that I will take the form and put the policy attached to it, so that no one will have any debate about, you know, and we won't have to scramble and look.
Okay,
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
that keeps it fair and equitable, consistent as well, so
Yeah.
that if we had multiple instances where we had this situation and somebody couldn't come back and say, well, that didn't happen before, so-and-so didn't have to sign a sheet, and so-and-so got to, you know.
Yeah, and the policy will have your approval date on it, so, you know, on X date, the school committee changed its policy based on a recommendation from MASC.
I suppose it makes sense. It's just to play, you know, see all sides of it. I just imagine if there is, you know, an issue that multiple people do want to speak about at a meeting, and each person takes the maximum of, you know, 3 minutes. Just the first 5 people take 3 minutes to speak, which I'm just making up a worst case scenario. And then, you know, the 6th, 7th, and 8th person who have respectful things to say and want to contribute and might have something very meaningful don't get to, it seems too bad. But I understand that you have to have control of a public meeting, and there has to be an end. I understand that. There's just a piece of me that feels sad if we don't hear from everyone who has something
Yeah.
meaningful to add.
No, it's not that we won't hear from them, we'll hear from them next meeting.
Of course we do, yeah, we want to. It's just, yeah, I'm just being realistic.
No, I hear what you're saying. So, I mean, I think there's the discussion, to put it simply, is there's one option where we take out the second sentence in number 2. Your suggestion, Tom.
My suggestion after Mr. Parentazzi covered the precedents and the context is to leave it in number 2 and keep the document as is.
Okay.
I lean toward that as well after the context provided, although I still feel a little bit torn.
Yeah, I am torn as well. I mean, I feel like the public comments segment shall not exceed 15 minutes. 15 minutes just seems short. If it was a,
For a
you know,
public
if
body.
we were having we do the budget presentation once a year. If we did have an audience and people had comments,
And we're here as elected officials to represent
to
them.
represent them and hear them, and, to have to cut it off, or to have it be the chair's discretion to, that seems,
The chair can still decide to hold to the original rule of 15 minutes if they see fit, and that's still protective.
that's true. That's why I was originally
Yeah,
suggesting
yeah.
moving this up to number, copying
It's
and
just-
moving it up to number 1.
I'd rather extend the time limit
Which time limit?
on the,
And
on
keep it
number
set.
1.
Oh, you mean just
it more
change it
generous.
here to 20 minutes or 25 minutes?
But you
So
keep
you're
it
saying
set
keep
so that
two
you're not
the way it
choosing
is.
when to and when not to,
No,
depending
I
on who's in
agree.
the audience.
Yeah, when I first read that, I
Maybe.
thought 15 minutes seemed sort of short,
Yeah.
thinking
I
five
think it solves for
people.
what you're saying and kind of what you're saying too.
It does.
15 minutes is a long time.
It very
Believe
well
me,
could
I've
be.
been here when we going through some major issues.
But the
And to
point's
be,
not,
and to be berated for 3 minutes one time was extremely, we actually had to ask the person to leave.
but I think
So I think you have a better chance of stopping it way more than the chances of extending it.
but I think my personal opinion as an elected official is that I do want to hear from people, and if people want to berate me, well,
Yeah, but
well, and if it's 25 minutes, I think I can handle 25 minutes of it. I might leave sad,
You should just keep
but
it in increments of 3 minutes, but
but there has to be decorum in a
for 3
meeting too.
minutes,
So 30.
8 speakers.
Madam Chair?
yes.
I think the reason it's short is that there is no legal exposure to extending it, but there is to shortening it.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't shorten it.
So let's say 6 people signed up. You have the sign-up sheet in front of you, and you look down and you say, at some point very early in the meeting after the flag salute, we have 6 people signed up. It is my intention of giving them all 3 minutes. That would mean that our public comment session today is 18 minutes. There's no legal exposure to anybody there.
If it, okay.
Because you're planning ahead, you're giving equal opportunity.
That's right.
Right, but so then we had 8 people signed up.
Then you extend it to 24 minutes.
And there-
Or you
There's
can,
no hard
or
cap.
you can
And
extend it
there'd
to
be no legal
48. Now, the
ramifications.
safe way that chairs do it, Madam Chair, just for everybody to think about, is you don't do it. You say, I would like to suspend the rules this evening and amend policy, by the way, that's why I'm going to have it attached, because everybody can then look at the policy. And I'd like to suspend the policy, and I would like to allow 48 minutes for public comment on this very important topic, because there are X number of people, and I'm going to give them 2 minutes each. And then you ask for a motion, somebody seconds it, you vote it, now the entire committee has done it,
So discretion is assumed.
which is the
Okay.
important part of suspending the rules, because you can't suspend the rules alone. Yeah,
Right, of course.
that's different. Whereas if it says, I'm going to make up a number, it says 30 minutes, and you have 2 people, and you try to cut it off at 15, 7.5 each, they're going to say, yeah, but your policy says 30 minutes total. Why are you cutting us off?
Ah,
That's fair.
That's why I think it's written that way.
that makes sense.
Okay,
That makes sense.
Thank you.
I understand. Yeah, no, I mean, it was good
It sounds like,
conversation.
yeah, it sounds like too that with the way of you suspending the rules, it allows us to encourage what would be constructive, productive conversation on a meaningful topic. And to suspend things that, or to go by the rules for things that perhaps are not going the right way.
okay,
Good point.
Yeah.
Very good
And when you
point.
say by not going the right way,
not
not being
productive.
productive.
Productive, exactly.
Yes.
That's right.
Right.
So number 4 touches on that,
Productive ways to
on the
do it.
kind of discussion that it should be and what things are prohibited, and that's also protects us because that's
Yeah, by
really
suspending the
not what
rules, you can
anyone
have a
wants
debate,
here. So,
a discussion. You suspend, by suspending the rules, you remove the responsibility of the school committee to following the policy. You can amend it in any way you want.
Right.
On a theoretical basis, you could amend the rules on a particular night when you had a mob and say there's no public speaking this evening. That would get in trouble, but I can tell you if you had one of those, you want it to be 15 minutes, not 30.
After discussion, this seems reasonable, because I didn't realize how much discretion would be allowed even if we had strict rules.
Right.
I've been in a meeting where the union just rushed the stage and they had to get security to get some of the people out of the meeting because they just couldn't hold that many people. So I know in a small town, we don't see it that often, but it has happened. We have been here where, not often, it's happened maybe once, where it was a personal between a school committee member and an audience member. And it was personal. And that's why eventually we had to say, your time is up.
Right.
We didn't do it out of anger, we didn't do it because we didn't want to hear it, but sadly, sometimes it could become personal and not professional.
Okay.
Moving on.
So we're adding template, I added that to the
Oh,
notes.
no, it's not adding temp.
The sign-up template?
Oh, yeah, the sign-up
Sign-up
template,
sheet.
and a sign-up sheet. Yeah.
be attached to the policy.
I'm thinking more typical. We're not adding that. Yep.
And then we're adding the school name.
School name.
Yep.
Yep.
And I'll take care of that, Madam Chair.
Thank
So
you.
that it's in your next packet.
Okay. We are recognizing by noting in the minutes that we did a first reading. Yep. Okay. And moving on to 8F, acceptance of a donation of books. Mr. Parentazzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In your packet, you have a letter from the Lapin Foundation, which is an organization that enhances Jewish identity across generations. And we were sent 2 books. I have both of them here. I was sent one, and the school committee chair was sent one. The author is Deborah Lipstadt. She is a DeRote Professor of Modern Jewish History and Holocaust Studies at Emory University. She has authored 6 books and many articles about the Holocaust. She successfully won a libel trial involving a Holocaust denier, and the movie Denial was based on that trial. I read a bit of the book. I just started it, and it's a wonderfully written. So I would love for a member of the committee to make a motion and for the committee to approve accepting of these books. The one that is addressed to the school committee, chair, obviously you can do with it what you will. My book, I'm going to read it and then I'm going to donate it to the library, the professional library at school.
Great, I'd like to read it, and
Yep.
then what I'll plan to do is just pass it along to other members of the committee to read, and then we can pass it back to the school as needed. I'm in the midst of a book right now, so if somebody else wants to start it first, that's fine, but, okay, can I have a motion to accept these books?
I'll make a motion to accept the 2 books for donation from the Lappin Foundation and the sorry, I can't read it. From the Lappin Foundation.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Chair votes aye.
Deborah left that.
Madam Chair, just for the edification of our viewers, the value of the 2 books is $51.90.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to personnel matters. Do we have any?
Madam Chair, we have stable personnel.
Great.
Thank you.
Add, right?
You did.
All right.
I was more making sure. Doing it combined, not single.
Business from the committee, I do not believe we have anything ongoing at this moment. No. Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn the regular school committee meeting for February 25th at 8:10. Going into executive session to...
No, we're
No,
not. We are not.
I'm sorry, Madam Chair, that's my fault.
Okay.
Just so that our viewers understand, the executive session was scheduled in case the NTA did not get back to us on their,
Letter of agreement.
the language that was proposed for the incentive, which they did.
I'll amend the amendment. I'll amend the motion, just make a motion to adjourn from the school committee meeting from February 25th at 8:12.
I'll second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. Thank you.